Hey there everyone, here we go. We're going to be loading some 458 Socom up. If you watch my previous video, you'll find out why I chose the 458 Socom and what the big deal is about big bore AR-15 calibers. They're pretty awesome. Where to start? After I determine the caliber, my reloading process starts online. I have a whole series about this. I did this on a 44 mag, and I will have the videos in the link and one up top. Now if you've watched those other videos, you'll know that first you've got to figure out what bullet weight you're shooting. That's highly dependent on you and what you want to do with the rifle. For this 458 Socom, first of all, I want to get some subsonic bullets going, so I'm using 500 grain bullets. Now, looking at some forums online, there were a few powders that seemed to work pretty good. H4198 seemed to come up a lot. Reloader 7 was another one that I thought would be good to try. Accurate 2200 as well. Now I'll have these up on the screen for you. And they go from the slowest burning to the fastest burning. Hodgdon's 4198 being the slowest and Unique the fastest. Now Unique seems extremely fast for the 458 Socom. I just found this in a forum. A few people said that they use Unique, so I included it on here. Now that's from the reloading forums. From the reloading data, you can see all the powders there, but I have put them in fastest to slowest burning order. Now this reloading data is for a 400 grain bullet. I'm using 500, and as you can see, you can do subsonic with a 400, but you'd probably want to do with a 500 because with the 400 you're losing more efficiency of the cartridge. As you can see on the load data, the 400 grainer, you can get going 15, 1600 depending on the powder you're using. And to get it subsonic, obviously you're going to need to drop that to 1100 or slower depending on the elevation. So you're not maximizing the cartridge, and you're again not maximizing the cartridge with most subsonic loads. So I've chose to do a 500 grain bullet. So based off all this information, I've decided to use 4198. Now, there are a few reasons for it. First, this powder came up the most in reloading forums for the 458 Socom and Subsonic. And now one thing to note, with some of these calibers that aren't, mainstream, a lot of the big bore calibers, you're doing subsonic, something that hasn't been done a lot. Sometimes it's hard to find load data for it. The only load data I could find for it that was published from a powder manufacturer was Hodgdon's, and it was just for a 400 grain, not for a 500 grain. So just looking at these powders based off of a 400 grain bullet, you can see that the pressures are pretty similar no matter what powder. So that's not a huge concern to me. And then as far as velocity, well, I'm not going to be maximizing the cartridge because I'm going to have it go subsonic. So velocity is not a huge concern. Pressure's not a huge concern. So I'm pretty much going off of the burn rate and what other reloaders have had luck with. And that seems to be Hodgdon's 4198. Now I'll take you to the reloading bench and show you what I do when reloading 458 Socom.
It's loading time. Come on, I'll show you what we're working with. We've got a bunch of these nice 500 grain bullets. Take a look at that bad boy now. Pretty big. That's from the NOE HTC 500 grain spire point mold. We've got the Lee reloading dies for 458 Socom. Caliper, some large rifle primers from Winchester. Bunch of Starline brass. And the old reloading setup.
Now what I've got is an RCB Auto Charge Master here, and if you haven't got an auto powder dispenser and you weigh individual powders for a lot of cartridges, I would highly suggest it. It saves you a lot of time. What I'm going to do here off camera, since it's pretty straightforward and I'm sure you would get bored watching me, I'm simply going to prime and charge the load at the same time.
Now, one thing you need to make sure you do is flare the case mouth a little bit if you're working with bullets that have no... Some molded bullets will have a little bevel at the base. It's a lot easier to put that in the mouth of the cartridge. This one does not. It's just a square flat base, so you're going to want to make sure to flare the case. It will make it a lot easier.
And I flare the case when I'm priming it. It just is a easy way to do it. So I'll prime it, flare it, and prime it while the powder dispenser is working its magic. I've actually done a little loading to this prior for the 458 Socom. This was without a suppressor, so I have a pretty good idea of what the maximum charge weight is while still being subsonic. So I'm going to do a 23.3, a 23.5, and a 23.7 charge weights. So I'll test these out in the next video. And we'll go ahead and load these up now. I'll go ahead, charge, prime, and flare the case while off camera, and I'll bring you back when I'm ready to seat the bullet. Now before I go any further, I do have to tell you I misspoke. I'm actually using IMR 4198. Now from what I understand, Hodgson's 4198 and the IMR 4198 are right next to each other on the burn chart. I can only imagine they'd perform pretty similarly. Obviously you wouldn't want to just exchange load data. And keep in mind, as always, don't just use my load data. You've got your own specific gun, specific chamber. You're going to want to load up your own bullets and figure out what works for you and your gun and being safe while doing it. I've got the die in, and I'm going to go ahead and seat these bullets. Now I did test the flare to make sure that it was enough so that I wouldn't have any issues seating the bullet. And when I start seating, I can't remember what the die was set at before, so I just screw it in a little bit and seat some and see what the overall length is. Now these are some big old nasty bullets, so they've got to go down a ways in the case. Still got a ways to go. Oh man, these bullets get me all excited. That's a big old nasty looking thing. Alright, so just continue to seat these bullets. Now they're long, so it takes a little bit to get them all the way seated. Well, I'll continue to seat the rest of these bullets, and then I'll bring you back when I am ready to factory crimp. Alright, time to put a crimp on it. Now if you need more detail, I've done videos earlier with more detail and explanation of each step and how I set each die. I'll have a link to that in the description and up above. Right now I'm just going through and I'm giving him a crimp with the Lee Factory Crimp Die. Now this step is very important, especially with semi-automatics. Is you want to give them a crimp so the bullet stays where it is during feeding. Now, just for the fun of it, let's take a look at a few bullets here. So here is the 223 5.56 55 grain bullet, and then we, looks like a pretty good bullet, right? Got pretty good power. It's a pretty powerful bullet. As small as a platform it can be shot out of. And here comes the 458 Socom. Holy smokes! That looks pretty nasty. That's a big old slugger. That'll put down anything that it hits. Big old 500 grainer. Subsonic. I'm excited to test these out, see how they perform. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you stay tuned for the next video. I'll be testing these big old sluggers out.